Welcome to the 7th episode of the 4th series of the Women in CX podcast, a series dedicated to real talk conversations between women in customer experience. Listen in as we share our career stories, relive the moments that shaped us, and voice our opinions as loudly as we like about all manner of CX subjects. I'll be your host, Clare Muscutt, and in today's episode, I'll be talking to one of our community members, a seriously awesome woman in CX, this time from Kenya. Let me introduce you to today's inspiring guest. She has over 18 years experience in CX, starting out on the front line and going on to spend 15 years with Emirates Airlines, travelling the world in various roles before returning to Kenya in 2018 with a personal mission to elevate CX in the region. She founded her own consulting practice 3 years ago and now works with a range of clients across multiple sectors, helping them to transform customer and employee experiences. Please welcome to the show CX sister Naima Mwawasi. Hi Naima.
Hi Claire, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you today?
I'm good. It's afternoon here. It's actually good evening now.
Whereabouts in the world are you?
I'm in Kenya, Nairobi. I'm based in Nairobi.
Well, welcome to the Women in CX podcast.
Thanks, Claire. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And welcome to everybody that's listening along as well. So let's just dive right in there then. And I'm sure the audience is really curious to find out more about your career journey. How exactly did you get into CX and end up where you are today?
All right, Claire, as we've spoken before, I worked for Emirates Airline for 16 years. My career in Emirates started in 2002 to 2016. And then I came back to Kenya in 2018 and founded Content CX Consulting, which I am a consultant, customer experience consultant until now. And of course, the managing director of Content CX, because I'm a sole proprietor in the organization. Now, let's talk about the CX, how I got into CX.
Yeah, tell us more about the Emirates days.
I know, yeah. So yes, I would always say that Emirates is the one that shaped me into customer experience. Why? Because first of all, Emirates is known as one of the largest organization, one of the biggest organization, and their customer experience is amazing. Yeah, I'm sure you've flown with Emirates and seen.
I have.
Yes. Yeah, and then of course, my duty in Emirates entailed traveling a lot through the world. I have traveled in all the 6 continents. I've seen different cultures, how different cultures, traveling and seeing how customer experience is, how service delivery is in different countries. So yeah, I remember coming back to Kenya, visiting Kenya a couple of times and really seeing how Kenya is. And I'm like, oh, no. We are really way behind in service delivery. So yes, so I started thinking about it. It was something that I just started thinking about it. And I think my journey started in 2014. So I just started thinking about how can I, help Kenya get to that service level in terms of service delivery. So yes, I always give this story. I went to a restaurant and the way I was served, it was not acceptable at all on all levels. And that's when I started thinking about it. I'm like, no. We need to do something. Something needs to change. Comparing what service I get outside there and where I come back to Kenya. In the banking industry as well, in the banks, how do they serve the customer? It was really challenging for me to even get something done. How is it in even the government offices as well? Dubai government is one of the really best customer service. In fact, they actually have a ministry called Ministry of Happiness. So government offices in Kenya are just way below the standards at that time, but they are improving right now because of technology as well that has come up. Yes, so looking at that and with the skills that I had, with the knowledge that I had, with the experience that I had, putting that together. So I wanted to come back to Kenya and get something to do. And of course, thought about Content CX. So the journey of content CX consulting started in 2017, where I started having research, doing a lot of research in CX, because that was my passion. I saw that was my passion, dealing relationship management in terms of customers and all that. So yes, came back in 2018. I can say it's been successful. Of course, Corona came in and things were really low, but of course it has been very successful. And I'm actually really happy to see that even in Kenya, there are a lot of people who have come up and advocating for CX and a lot of CX enthusiasts. I met a lot of them as well. And yeah, the journey is, we keep on moving in terms of the CX in Kenya. And I'm proud to say that I'm part of that movement. I'm part of that, making sure that Kenya, we are in that level. Yes.
Yeah, I think we had 3 women from Kenya at our intro event this morning, and we've got a few ladies, haven't we now, from your region joining.
Whoa,
so
that's nice.
Yeah, so there's definitely a demand for customer experience professionals over there for sure, it sounds like, anyway. But tell me a bit more about that kind of the journey on the front line then. So you were flying around the world as an air hostess, cabin crew, sorry. Yeah.
Yes, I was flying as a cabin crew. Yeah. And so with my journey of cabin crew, of course, with Emirates, when you join, you start from serving in economy class and then moving to business class. You know, now you get the business people. And then now first class is all the leisure and, you know, the top de la cream, I would say, you know, meeting celebrities, meeting very big officials. Yes, I've flown with different fellow celebrities. Oh, really fun. So VIP as well. So dealing with VIPs and all that. Yeah. So yes, my career journey in Emirates was really interesting because I think it takes you through different levels, you know, from, you know, you serving an economy, different level of people, and to the VIP in first class. And also, again, I did some trainings, a lot of trainings. We did a lot of trainings. Emirates, it was all about training. So yes, when I became purser, I was purser, which is an Inflight Manager for 8 years. I did some trainings. I became a trainer as well. So I used to train the junior staff, especially the ones who freshly joined. Yes, so I was part of them, just making sure that they get to the standards that we wanted.
And it was so fascinating when you came and delivered your case study in the community last week, wasn't it?
Yes.
Just to understand that kind of connection between like product, as in the in-flight experience, the seats, the different classes, the food, the brand, and advertising and marketing, and then people and process, how that all kind of connected together to create this kind of seamless, unique experience that is in fact world class. So yeah, fascinating. I've always wondered what it would be like if I'd have had any other kind of career interests that's like at an earlier stage of my career. I always wondered what it would be like to go and like fly around the world as part of cabin crew. Do you get to like enjoy yourself, or is it quite hard work, like moving around so much? Do you get to rest in nice places?
Of course. It was my best times, you know, like honestly, I enjoyed myself in 16 years, and I'll tell you, it is living large. You know, you're not paying for anything. You know, you're paid. It's like a holiday being paid. You know.
Wow.
Yeah. So of course, traveling the world. When I joined, actually, the first years when I joined, we used to stay in a place like I'll fly to New York and stay for 5 days. You know, I fly to Japan and stay for 4 days. You know, but now when you know in 2008 when things became very busy, the airline industry became very busy, so we used to do only 24 hours. But here we are, cabin crew, you know, flying and sleeping in the best hotels, 5-star hotels. That's where we used to sleep. And of course, you're given allowances. So those allowances, you'd go out, go and do all the adventures that you wanted. Go to any places that you wanted, of course, and of course, keeping it more professional in terms of making sure that you're working, but also having fun. Yeah. It was really interesting. I do miss flying. I do miss flying a lot. Yeah. But it was time for me to leave because I really wanted to just make sure that my career grows in a different level. There are times in life that reaches and you're like, I need to move to another level, you know. Yeah. So yeah.
So kind of leading on from that then, so this like kind of life of adventure that you created, you know, that she loves adventure, I do too.
I know. Yes, I say that.
But what was like one challenge that you overcame to become the woman that you are today? And how is that connected with this life of adventure? I'm intrigued.
Oh my God. Okay. Oh, everybody has a story in life, some difficult, some very deep. I would say I come from a very humble beginning and was brought up by my mom and my dad. And seeing my mom and my dad living together, growing up. And I saw my dad, how my mom is a career woman. She has always been a career woman. By the way, she's 81 this year.
Wow.
I know, yeah, my dad passed away about 10 years ago. Yeah. So my mom was a career woman. My dad really supported my mom in her career, and just let her be, and I really admire that, So growing up, seeing that, I wasn't the smartest kid in school, I would say.
Me neither.
I wasn't the smartest kid in school, or rather, let me rephrase it. I wasn't the brightest kid in school, but I was smart,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, but I was very good in mathematics. So calculations, I was very good. So my dad believed that I can be a banker or an accountant, So I finished my A levels, and we call it 844 here, but in the UK it's A levels. So I finished my A levels, joined the university to study accounting. So I did accounts the first 1 year. The second year, I fell in love, and
not with accounting, I take it. You didn't fall in love with that.
I said, no, I fell in love with the man.
Oh.
Yes, and unfortunately, I got diverted, and of course, coming from some, societal and cultures in Kenya, and basically the Muslim world as well. So I actually dropped my school and got married. So at a very young age, at the age of 21.
21. Wow, that's so young.
I know, age of 21. Of course, life wasn't that easy because I wasn't working. And then one day, when I was 22, bumped into this adverts, Emirates adverts. And I just said, let me give it a try. And I did. And they took me, actually. I went for the interview and they took me. So it was a bit of a challenge. Should I moving from Kenya now to Dubai? And I'm married, I remember. But yeah, we were young, both with my ex-husband, really excited. So we moved to Dubai together. So going through that in, flying and being married, you're never home. You're always traveling. It brought a lot of friction into my marriage. Yeah. So it got to a point 5 years later, or rather 6 years later, I had to make that hard decision, And my decisions was purely driven by how my mom and my dad lived their life, So I was thinking about how my dad supported my mom in her career, to a point that it got to a point, my mom was one of the person, she was earning more than my dad, And still my dad was there like a man supporting my mother, So really thinking about that. And here I am trying to, break my dreams to be with this man. So apart from that, there were also a lot of other things that happened, but that was the major thing. I was supposed to move back to Kenya and just being a housewife, and that was basically it. That was the condition.
Wow. So he was expecting you to
move back.
Stop traveling, come back to Kenya, and just be a
Yeah,
housewife and not work anymore.
exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
So I had to make that hard decision. Of course, I involved my mom, I involved my sisters, and yeah, there was a lot of support from my family, and they made that hard decision. So I divorced my ex-husband. It was 2 years after that. It was 2 years of a lot of, going through. Everybody who has gone through a divorce will tell you it is not easy. Even breakups are not easy. So yeah, so it was a lot of counseling. I would say I went into a bit of a depression. Yeah, so it wasn't easy. So for 2 years, but I had a lot of counseling with my manager as well. I had some very good support from my immediate manager in Emirates. So she really supported me. Yeah, so I came over it. I get emotional sometimes when I talk about it, but yeah. So I came out of it, and yeah, I went back to school. So I went, did my undergrad. I finished my undergrad 4 years down the line. Then I was like, oof, I've done it. So yes, went again and did my master's. I finished my master's. So yeah, so I was really proud of myself, and I was growing, I was learning, I was seeing new things and feeling good about myself, about life in general, coming from where I came from and then now being where I am. And this is what I always say, I wish my dad was alive then to see how I have grown, because he wasn't a happy man when I dropped out of school, of course. Yeah, so yes, so that really shaped me. I think it was an experience that I always say that I'm glad I did it, and I would, if given that opportunity again, I would never ever think twice again. I would do it again. So being with a partner or a husband, at least, who supports your dream, your husband who supports your career, a husband who supports you in that's very important in life.
Yeah, I guess at like 21 though, when you got married and you fell in love, like you just don't know like that much about the world, do you? I think that looking back now,
yeah,
at 21 I thought like I knew it all and I understood
exactly.
everything. And some of the decisions I made, like I think, God, if I could only go back and tell myself, like,
I know.
and
Yeah,
decisions that I made like around guys and like what I put up with and stuff,
I
like
know.
but you, with this kind of whole concept of love when you're that young, can be
Yes,
very distracting, can't it? And
and derail you completely.
yeah, and send
I
you like
always
massively off track.
I know. I mentor young girls. I actually also used to mentor a lot of young girls in Emirates, and I mentor young girls as well here in Kenya. And I always keep on telling them, you know what? Don't be fooled. Love will always be there. So, but focus on your career. I always say, and I'm sure a lot of women in CX here, maybe some of them have gone through that. Some of them are still young, going through that. Some of them are raising girls. So I think it is very important that we make sure that our girls know that career will always be. I always say marriage, children are external factors. Kids will also grow. When you get married, have kids will also grow. And then what is left with you? So building your career is very, very important. Yeah.
So much of that resonates with me. Like I've never been married and I'm single currently.
Yeah. Wow.
But I've done absolutely everything that I wanted in my life myself. And I like built my own financial stability. I don't have to rely on anybody.
On anyone.
No. So there's like kind of no need there. But at the same time, I do feel some pressure, I suppose. Now I've just turned 40 to be thinking like if I did want that more traditional family, to have children myself, to get married, that kind of thing, like this impending sense of like time running out to do that. But I that pressure still wouldn't make me compromise on, like you say, knowing that if I was with somebody, they'd have to support me in my career. I wouldn't just stop it all to do what they wanted me to do. I'm just like, I think, you know, what you said there, your dad would absolutely be so proud that you went back and you achieved all of your own dreams, and, you know, you're running this fantastic business now. So I'm super proud of you, and that's a really inspiring story. And absolutely agree, like, you know, the role that we have in mentoring young girls or younger women, because I really wish like I'd have had somebody that could have been a mentor to me. I didn't. I just went off and made all these crazy mistakes and decisions that like took me a while, like a long time to recover from. So it's also really heartening to hear that you've like kind of kept that network where you are now. And does culture play a part in kind of traditional gender roles and marriage and the expectations of young girls that you mentor?
It does, especially in Kenya. You know, the African culture is very strong culture. And there's a lot of judgmental, you know, like right now, yes, I'm not married. I don't have kids, you know, and I'm 43.
No way, you do not look 43.
I know. So people meet you and look at you like, oh my God, what went wrong? You are divorcee, so what went wrong? You don't have kids at 43, so what went wrong? They always think that maybe you do have a problem or maybe something. So there's a lot of that. I remember when I divorced, and you know, my mom, she had this habit. In her house, there were always pictures of her kids. And one of some of the pictures that will be there is like my sister and her husband, me and my husband, my brother with a wife and all, you know. So when I divorced, when I kept on going home, I still saw for almost 3 years, I kept on seeing my picture in my ex-husband at my mom's house. And I kept on like, I go and just get it out. And then she's like, oh yeah. And then my brother will call me like, oh yeah, she put it back again, you know? So it's just societal, you know, like divorce shouldn't be happening, you know, in anyone's, in our community especially. It shouldn't be happening. So like what went wrong, you know? And of course, there always a lot of judgmental in terms of it's the woman who makes the home. So if it breaks, it's the woman. So there's a lot of judgmental. So I had to deal with that, remember, in terms of family, relatives and all that. But yeah, I overcame it. Yeah. And
it's even more amazing, like with the cultural aspect of it, because I guess like I'm not subjected to any of that, because like there isn't like an expectation culturally or based on religion of what I'm supposed to do as a woman, but I still encounter the same reaction.
Of course.
People always assume that I'm married with kids, and when I tell them I'm not, and they know how old I am, I get this kind of like, oh, poor you, look, like what went wrong? And I'm like, this is my choice. Like,
I know. Honestly, the marriage is not a goal.
No, but I think that's it. It's a universal kind of negative thing.
Stereotyping
for women, like and on like not to conform to gender roles. People have some kind of like negative feeling towards the life choices that women who decide not to follow that traditional path make. But we're two kick-ass business owners who are slaying our lives and loving every moment of it, and we don't have anyone that we have to be beholden to. I think that's definitely an advantage.
That's very good.
So you're talking about kind of like, that was a brilliant story, and thank you so much for sharing. Like it was so inspiring. Honestly, like I feel like I'm welling up with emotion in response to it, because I identify so much with what you're saying too, and it is truly a story of courage. But thinking a little bit about kind of Kenya and CX then, just to kind of finish off, we can't have the Inspiring Women in CX podcast without talking about a little bit of customer experience. I know you and I have had conversations previously within the community, you know, with Mandisa and like kind of Wix Africa and the kind of specific challenges that developing countries in Africa are facing when it comes to customer experience. I just think it would be really interesting for our listeners to hear a little bit more about what life is like in Kenya, what's going on, and what's kind of creating those challenges and opportunities in customer experience there.
Okay. So like I said earlier, customer experience was really viewed as just a soft skill to many organizations. I remember then, of course, growing up, not even growing up, I would say about 20 years ago, 15 years ago, very, very small organizations. There was not much competition in Kenya. Yeah. Kenya being, I would say, developing country, a lot of growth in the last 20 years. There's been a lot of growth, So we've seen a lot of multinational organizations coming in. Yeah. There has been tremendous economic growth, customers' demand as well has really, really grown, So yes, and customers are aware now, consumers are aware now, people have travels, remember. People are exposed, yes. People are exposed.
Like you did, and you came back and you were like...
Yes, growing up when someone used to travel and it's just very few people and we'll all go to the airport and wave with that person, And now, every traveling has become just going and coming back, So people are well traveled in Kenya now, So they've seen the difference out there. So yeah, so there has been a lot of competition. Multinational organizations have come in demanding, that return on investment. And how do they compete with each other? So there's a lot of banks, even international banks coming in, Pan-African banks coming in, not just having the local banks now. We have telecommunications. A lot of people have partnered with multinational organizations, international organizations. So the demand has really grown. So how do they become differentiators in the markets? So yes, organizations have seen a lot in terms of the importance of CX. Coming back to Kenya in 2018 and founding Content CX. So of course I came up with all this profile and all this strategy on how to help clients in terms of achieving their customer-centric culture in their organization. It wasn't easy to pitch for clients because the first thing they'll tell you, train my staff,
So still in that old mindset of
exactly
soft skill.
Train my staff. Yeah, train my staff. Especially you're coming from Emirates, train my staff, Yeah. But yeah, of course, now we've seen a lot. And of course, there's a lot of campaigns that have come in, a lot of webinars that are happening, even with women in CX, it's been advocated here now in Kenya. We are doing that as well. So yeah, so organizations now have seen the need to actually have a CX department in their organization, that comes up with actually a CX strategy that is customer centered, So yes, in terms of how do they brand themselves, how do they do their learning and development in terms of, creating that culture of customer centricity? How do they, put technology? Like we were talking earlier, the technology in the developing countries, everything has just come really, everything is bombarded us with everything. Technology has just come up and all that. So how do we use that technology to ensure that we are customer centric? How do we even work in our internal processes? How do we align different departments to be able to achieve that customer centricity? So yes, with the growth, economic growth, with the multinational organizations that have come in, with consumers awareness and knowledge, exposure with the consumers as well. Yes, CX has really changed from the traditional way of the way people used to think to what it is now, and it's continuing to grow.
Yeah, and I just find it fascinating because I guess where customer experience is dominant in terms of thought leadership. I'm using inverted commas if people that are listening are not watching, doing a little bunny ear signal. But we had a long time to get used to these changes because it all happens gradually in comparison to the explosion that's happening in developing countries. So I think it's very interesting and great to see women like you leading at the forefront of helping companies to understand the bigger picture, and connecting some of those things together, because as you said, expectations of the consumers have changed. They've been influenced massively by what they see outside. Individual wealth has grown, therefore consumerism's grown. But having traveled to places like, your examples were great, like how well service works in banks or government services elsewhere, like because of the internet and news and everything that's available. It's not like people don't know it exists, so the expectation definitely changes. But it's the acceleration, isn't it, how quickly it's all happened in the last 20 years, like the UK, America, like that kind of started in the 70s, so we've had like 50 years of economic also kind of post-war, I suppose, development and time to catch up. So as I said, great to see you leading the way on this. So unfortunately that's all we've got time for, but what piece of advice would you give to the women in CX out there who are listening to this podcast?
What I would tell my community, women in the community, is we should never stop learning. Knowledge is power, and I always say that no matter, you will learn something different tomorrow, the day after you learn something different, and we learn from each other, definitely. But again, nothing external should stop you from reaching your potential. Whether it is marriage, it is children, it is whatever it is out there, should never stop you from getting your potential. I'm thinking of actually studying my doctorate, so my PhD. So it's something that I'm thinking about. Wow. And I'm challenging myself to take that up, hopefully by next year.
Dr. Naima, that would be amazing. So thank you so much for coming today, sharing your story, sharing your insights, helping our listeners to understand a bit more about what's going on in Kenya and Africa and CX in developing countries. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. It was really nice chatting with you today, and I look forward to more of this podcast as well.
Yeah, me too. So thanks, Naima, and we'll see you all soon, listeners. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Women in CX podcast with me, Clare Muscutt. If you enjoyed the show, please drop us a like, subscribe and leave a review on whichever platform you're listening or watching on. And if you want to know more about joining the world's first online community for women in customer experience, please check out the Women in CX page on LinkedIn or visit womenincx.community. Join us again next time, where I'll be talking to another amazing community member, this time from the USA, about living our values and purpose and the art of CX leadership. See you all soon.